Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth,
And I'm Coach Victoria.
and today we're going to be talking about my ex came back after 50 years.
I can't believe it.
We've got a record. We definitely have a record.
Wow.
I've seen people and had people message me over like 30 years. I think the longest I ever heard was 35.
Wow.
But I got an email coaching 50 years.
That's incredible.
So you guys are always wondering, is my ex going to forget about me after 3 months?
Oh my gosh.
Here we have somebody that didn't forget about their ex after 50 years.
Yeah. Now some of you are also thinking, oh God, do I have to wait 50 years for this? Oh.
We wouldn't recommend doing that. But, I thought this was a good one because, first of all, I've never seen 50 years like this before. I mean, that's like literally a lifetime.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you guys that you think somebody's going to forget about you, move on with their life. And even if they do move on with their life, it doesn't mean they're going to forget about you. In fact, as you're going to see here, these two people didn't forget about each other at all.
Wow.
So let's get to this one, shall we? You guys are like, what? I know they're going to be shocked, like 50 years.
I'm shocked still.
Yeah, when I saw this, I had to do the math at first.
Yeah.
But it is 50 years, literally, okay? So this is from the woman, and she said, it was our first love and intimacy relationship for both of us. He was 16, and I was 14. We dated for a year and a half. Now, this was from 1970 to 1972.
Wow.
That's 50 years,
Wow.
50 years ago on the dot. Then I moved to another country. We kept in touch. Him always signing your future husband in his letters, and I visited a couple of times. Last time when I was 19 years old. He had married another girl due to getting her pregnant, and that is the last time I saw him, and no contact afterwards.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Yeah. And just thinking about society and culture, how different it was back then.
Right.
Dating culture, what things were normal and what things weren't. At that time, if you did get somebody pregnant, it was expected that you marry the person out of saving face, even for your family. I don't know which country they're from, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, 1972. Move forward 50 years or so. During the 50 years, he married twice and has moved to another country 10 years ago with his second family, his wife, but now they're divorced, and 2 children who are in their 20s. However, his ex-wife still lives with him along with his 2 children. So the first thing that I kind of wondered here is he being truthful about everything, right?
Yeah.
You're going to hear how they linked up and stuff in a minute, but you kind of wonder, they haven't seen each other. People aren't always honest in these kind of situations, especially if he's been wanting to see how things were with this woman for 50 years. He might not be honest off the bat just to see if it doesn't ruin any chances.
Exactly.
Right?
And there could also be the possibility of her living there. I mean, people have different arrangements after divorce, especially if they're co-parents. We don't know their financial situation. We don't know their family situation. So it's a possibility, but I would be questioning it as well.
Absolutely. He says that his ex is like a family member. That makes sense. And can't just kick her out due to, 1, she doesn't speak the language. 2, she helped him succeed in his business. And 3, is the mother of his 2 children. She also has depression issues, but they have not been intimate for over 20 years.
Wow.
Now, again, the first thing I'm wondering, is he telling the truth? It's possible, yes. But I'm not going to believe somebody right off the bat, and I'll tell you, it's because I've seen similar situations where somebody really was still married, and they were on and off with their partner, but they don't want to tell this person because they don't want to blow it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly. And the other thing to consider is how involved is this ex-partner in his life? Even if it is true that they are divorced, would she have an influence on their relationship if they did start something?
Yeah. Okay. He did send a Facebook request about 10 years ago, but I never accepted it. He says, I was married and had 2 children. Her daughter passed away a couple of years ago. So that's brutal. If you lose a child, that is just horrible. And so my heart goes out to her for that. Her son is in his 40s. And her husband passed away this year. Now, they were married for 45 years.
Wow.
So she's lost her daughter and her husband in a short amount of time. You can't even imagine what it would be like to go through that. That's horrible. That would be a very, very painful thing to go through. You know, losing your daughter and then your partner who saw your child grow up isn't even there to share that with you anymore.
Exactly, and it's probably incredibly courageous for her to be able to open her heart again to somebody else, even after those losses.
Yeah, and I think she's scared, and we're going to see that. And I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Right? Because she hasn't seen this guy in 50 years. It's a long time. Okay. He heard and sent another Facebook request, and I accepted. I was lonely and lost. He was ecstatic, and we have been chatting ever since. He initiates about 80% of the contact every day, sometimes a couple of hours, from very romantic to everyday life topics. He mentioned that he made a huge mistake letting me go and apologized from 50 years ago.
Wow.
You guys doubt, even if your ex misses you after a few months. 50 years, here you have it.
And what's also really common is for people to idealize their past relationship and to fantasize about them. There does seem to be an element of magic here, of wow, way back then, you know, things were perfect. And especially after a marriage, if it is true what he's saying, of 20 years without intimacy, of course, your brain is going to wonder what else is out there, what could have been.
I agree with that. In fact, that's some of the points that I made to her in the email coaching, is that, you know, this guy's been in a loveless marriage for 20 years, assuming he's telling the truth or there's no intimacy there. So he's probably been fantasizing about her even more so, of who he magically wished she was or, you know, thought she could be. And, you know, a lot of that is not the day-to-day issues that you'll have in a real relationship where you get on each other's nerves and somebody wants to do this, but you don't want to do that. And so it's an element of fantasy there. He said of all the girls he met, he loved and still loves me the most. All passwords are my name and birthdays. Pretty wild.
That is wild.
I mean, could that really be true?
I don't know.
If that's true, that is really unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't even know when your birthday is. I actually do know her birthday. I'm not going to give it away, but there's a way to remember it that's very easy. She won't let me tell you.
No.
Okay. So she also goes on to say that he remembers many details of our relationship, and when I remember, he says that that he loves that I remember, and that I understand him. All right, that's quite a sentence. Hopefully it made any sense to you guys, because it was a struggle for me. He says he feels the most comfortable, close, and safe, and can talk about anything to me despite the 50-year gap. He had a ponytail for 10 years. I mentioned while he looked handsome, I preferred him with short hair. He went and cut his hair.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty big. I also feel a deep connection and love him. Now, the issue is that they live in separate countries. He has his life, and his family is very important to him, has a social life, rides a motorcycle with friends on a weekly basis, and does all kinds of cooking and yard work, I guess, around the house. I, on the other hand, am trying to take care of all the legal paperwork due to my husband's passing, which is a lot.
Yeah. Practically, that's very difficult, especially if you're in the process of grieving. Now, we don't know how long ago her husband
It
passed.
said in the last year, or this year, I think it said.
So that's very recent,
Yeah.
you know, dealing with that after so many years.
Yeah, you can't even imagine, right?
Yeah.
We are both retired and financially stable. He did ask what my future plans were, but I said I'm not sure. He said if I moved to his country, he would be with me. But I know it's not as easy as he is saying. I agree with that.
Yeah, that's a huge request.
They haven't even seen each other yet.
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing you got to do is see how we are in person. I asked what his plans were, and he said he was just going to stay in his country, but now has the urge to see me and travel. He did mention how he could be with the one he loved and not hurt anyone. Well, I don't know what the situation is with that ex-wife or wife, because I'm not sure he's telling the whole truth there.
Right.
And that's just based on experience, on seeing similar situations. There's often some information left out to make that person seem like they're more available than they really are. So I'd be careful.
Yeah.
Okay?
And like you mentioned, without really meeting in person and seeing who the other person is, just because you knew each other from a very young age doesn't mean you know who he is now.
We plan to meet up in February in the country we met about 10 days. Okay, I guess where they originally met. She doesn't say which country, actually. Is there even a future between us considering our age, situation, etc.? What boundaries should I set? Okay, I would really want to know, first of all, how it goes in person. Because maybe it won't even go well in person. Now, it's possible that it goes great. But after meeting in person, a lot of times in situations like this, the other person freaks out. Right? So maybe he hasn't been completely truthful. And then he goes back home and he's like kind of living a double life.
Right.
And could disappear for a while. So I'd just be very guarded here. Just be very careful.
And I would also wait some time, as you're saying, after this trip to really make any decisions. I do agree with you that some people can have a reaction to an intensely emotional trip like that, 10 days together where you're 24/7. After not seeing each other for 50 years, it's going from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And so we want to see how he'll handle that first. And as far as boundaries, I would say taking things easy. It sounds like the language that has been used here so far, talking about moving in, talking about how he'll never hurt you. We're making a lot of promises here without really knowing who the other person is. And it
Could be some love bombing.
It could be. And I know there's also that tendency later on in life, that fear of I'm going to end up alone if I don't make it work with this person. And so I really want to move away from that and have a more realistic view of how do we interact? Do I feel safe with him? How can I continue to get to know him? And asking more of those questions rather than just jumping straight to, let's get together, move over here to my country, and we're going to live a happily ever after.
Yeah, be careful. She says, I don't want to be a part-time lover and just be on Messenger. I'm willing to compromise, but it should be equal. I just lost 2 close family members, and I'm scared to go through another loss. And I agree with that. Could you imagine losing your husband of 45 years, losing your daughter, and just, I mean, that's devastating. Then somebody comes back into your life, from 50 years ago, and starts telling you all these fantasies and, romantic ideas, and they come on really strong, but you haven't even seen them yet.
And I also want to point out that you're in a very vulnerable state. Just hearing that this loss happened not too long ago.
Yeah, this year.
In the span of time. I would really take that time for yourself to process things before jumping into anything. And he has to realize that too. That right now you're sensitive, maybe you're reacting to things that maybe you wouldn't a year from now or 2 years from now. Not putting a timeline on yourself, but just being realistic about where you are in your grieving process.
Yeah, those are all important things to think about. She goes on to say that he is set in his ways. Sometimes I do feel that he is hot and cold, but he says at least a good morning and a good night daily, perhaps due to the uncertainty of our situation. Well, having done this for a while, there's a skeptic in me that thinks, was he just not available to send a message throughout the day because the kids are around, the wife is around, and they have no idea. I mean, they probably don't even know that she exists, right?
Who knows?
I'd
Probably
say more
not.
likely than not.
Yeah.
They probably don't even know she exists.
And playing the tape forward, if you've already talked about moving in, what is his game plan here? Or at least moving to the country. So you move in his same city. Will he come see you at his place? How available will he be to his ex-wife? Is he planning for you to move into his home along with his ex-wife?
Is he willing to have the ex-wife move out?
Right. There's so many questions.
Because he's going to have to do that.
And I think if he is bringing some of these things up, I would challenge him on them. Okay. And so if I move to your country, what would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would be afraid to pick up and move there, and then he's dragging his feet. He's telling her one thing but doing another. He's not really moving the ex-wife out. I mean, I think I would say to him, look, if I'm going to pick up and move there, I need to know that your ex-wife has gotten her own place. I'm okay with you being friends with her, but I don't want to be a secret to anybody. I'm picking up and moving my life to be there.
Right.
I'm not going to be a secret.
And this is particularly risky for you who's also going through this grieving process. Just thinking about being plucked out of your social support network and into a new country. I don't know if you have supports there, but from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like it. I would really put yourself where you're surrounded by people who will support you no matter what. And as of right now, it seems risky to put a lot of trust in this before really knowing what you're getting into.
Yeah. I'd be very careful here. Okay. Lately, not as much romantic conversations, but here and there. His ex living with him also bothers me, since she still has feelings for him. Because according to her, she asked. So that's a big red flag. Is he going to feel too guilty to have her move out? I mean, but they haven't been intimate in 20 years. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But you don't know for a fact if he's telling the truth.
Right.
You know?
Right. And sometimes you'll find that somebody who is in a committed relationship, regardless of the quality of it, they still cannot be fully available to you if they have that other person in the back of their head. And so I would take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also thinking about, his impact on his current wife. Just what you were saying earlier, does she know about you? Does she know about the degree of your conversations? How honest is he being with all parties involved? Because that's really going to show character.
Yeah, I don't think they know. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. A little bit more here. Really don't know what to do, and I'm confused, especially with all that has happened in my life. I've just started therapy to address my other issues to deal with the losses. Okay. She's also going to do a Skype with us to discuss everything. Okay, so obviously, it's nice to know that your ex still thinks about you after 50 years.
Yeah.
And holds her in such high regard. Now, it's possible that he's being authentic about everything and he's being sincere, but it's also possible that he's hiding some things. And I've been doing this for a long time, so my gut tells me there's probably a little bit of love bombing going on here and some hiding information of what's really going on at that house. But take your time and find out. Ideally, start with just a vacation to see if you even get along together.
Yeah.
And 10 days might be a bit much for that first time together. You know, maybe keep it more like 4 or 5 days so, you know, you don't get completely overwhelmed with a complete stranger for 10 days. I mean, that's a long time.
It is a long time.
You know?
Yeah. And also just thinking about your losses. Sometimes we find that people after a significant death that happens in their life, they do jump into a relationship because it feels a hell of a lot better to be in love than it is to be grieving. And so I would really urge you to look at your own emotional state. You know, is this something that's a distraction for you from the grief? Which if it is, I really don't blame you, because it feels good, and it feels good to be connected and seen and heard, and it sounds like he's very attentive to you.
Yeah.
But I also don't want that to blind you from any type of red flags that you might see. I want you to just be hyper aware of the situation.
Take your time. Don't believe everything that he says. Make his actions line up with his behavior and slowly get to reacquainted with him again. Maybe it will turn into something. Maybe he's telling the truth about everything. Maybe he is genuinely excited about her and hasn't been intimate with his wife in a long time, and maybe they really are divorced. But ultimately, even if that's all true, he's still got to get her to move out and move on so he can move on with his own life. He's not responsible for her complete well-being. She's an adult. And you have the right to be happy too, meaning him.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to stay with somebody all these years if, they don't want to get help for themselves and deal with their own mental health issues.
Exactly.
That's not fair on him either.
Mm-mm.
He's a right to be happy.
Yeah, I agree.
So take it slow, be very careful, and look for red flags. And of course, we'll do a Skype call. You said you wanted to do one. But it's nice to know your ex is thinking about you after 50 years. Because this is a new record.
Yeah.
I know I've seen 35 before. But I definitely know I've never seen 50.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Pretty shocking, huh?
It is. And you know what? I agree. I think there is hope in this situation. And we want you to protect yourself.
A lot to think about here. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do it on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. And of course, Victoria is available for Skype coaching.
I'm here if you need to talk.
Just sign up by clicking on her name on the top of the website. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.